Crime, Wine, and Chaos contains adult language and graphic content. Listener discretion is advised.
Not to put too fine a point on it, but tell us we're the only bees in your bonnet, Chaos Kids. I'm Naomi.
I'm Amber, and this is Crime, Wine, and Chaos. Oh, man. You're the only bee in my
birdhouse
bonnet.
in your soul. Come on. Okay.
Woo! Man. Hi, sister.
Hi. What's going on?
Nothing. It's been 3 days since the last time we recorded. Nothing. You know, I woke up a little congested yesterday, and that's on par because, of course, I have a show tomorrow. So,
right.
You know.
Where's your show at? What's the deal?
It's at a place called Turntables and Trails. It is a music store / hiking store. It's very strange. And the guy...
a what?
It's like the guy had a bunch of music stuff and a bunch of hiking gear. And instead of having a yard sale, he opened a store.
Where is this?
It's in Lake City.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And he books bands every Friday and Saturday night.
This is the strangest collection of things all in the same place at the same time.
I fucking love it.
I do too. How did you even find this guy?
I have no idea. Gary found it.
Oh, bless you, Gary. Bless you for finding the weird guy with the weird store for the perfect show. Excellent. You doing the full band setup in this joint? He has like a whole...
Yeah.
Wow.
I guess so. Yeah. Like aisle 3, here we come. Like, I don't know how it works, but we're doing it.
Fuck yeah. We're doing it.
Yep.
We're doing it live. Awesome.
What about you? Anything new?
God, no. I'm still acclimating to not being on the road and getting my, shit back together. And no, I got nothing. I got nothing for you. I'm sorry.
That's good.
You guys,
That's
sorry.
okay.
I got nothing. I took up a lot of your time last time. We talked about Jesus signs and, all the mileage. What are you drinking?
Thank you for asking. I actually just have a ginger ale right now. Not feeling super great.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
That's all right.
Okay.
It's all right.
Well, okay. Ginger, what brand? Is it just like Canada Dry? Or
no, it's called Cock and Bowls.
I feel like I've heard of it.
It's like super gingery.
Oh, yeah. So it's more like a ginger beer.
Correct. It's really good.
I love a ginger beer. Although I have found that if it's a real heavy ginger beer, like it actually will give me an upset stomach.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Like I can't drink too much.
Huh. That's like the opposite of what ginger is supposed to be doing.
Well, it's all about quantity.
That's
the
true.
dose makes the poison, sister. The dose makes the poison.
Fair enough.
Do you have a crime for me today?
I do. I have a bleak one. They're all bleak.
Yeah, right.
I am going to tell you about Cheyenne Clough.
Okay.
All right. We're going to 2011 in Buffalo, Minnesota.
Okay.
It's about 45 minutes west of the Twin Cities, where everybody knows everybody, and you can't say anything without everyone knowing all your business, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So at Buffalo High School, home of the Bison. Yeah.
You know what's really funny about that is I just saw a TikTok yesterday from somebody talking about how bison and buffalo are very different animals.
Isn't that weird though? They had an opportunity there.
She showed pictures of them, right? And she was like, they're not the same. They're not the same.
No.
Also, bison are majestic creatures. They're like really... Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So
they will eat your face off, though.
Will they?
I think so. Won't they like trample you?
Oh, well, that's different than eat your face off. I mean, like leopards will eat your face. Bison will trample you, but they do that in numbers, don't they? Usually do that in numbers. I don't know. I don't know a lot about bison. I mean, they're almost extinct still, right? They're like trying to make a comeback. I don't.
They're trying to make a comeback. That's what we're calling endangered species.
Don't call it a comeback.
God. That's bad. Okay. Home of the Bison.
Anyway,
Buffalo High
School.
Okay?
Buffalo High School. Got it.
Yep. And it's just like any other high school where there are cliques and popular groups typically consisted of the kids who had parents with money who bought them cars and could pay for sports and blah, blah, blah. Right?
Yada, yada. The
There's a
huge.
social hierarchy, and at the top were the preppy kids with their Hollister and Abercrombie, right? Yeah. So 14-year-old Cheyenne Clough and her friends were not part of the cool kids club.
Okay.
They weren't at the bottom of the hierarchy. They were just like kind of dead center, you know?
You know what? Dead center's a good spot, actually.
Yeah, it is a good spot. Cheyenne was quirky and social and was able to click with all kinds of different people, and she would be the first one to speak up if she saw someone else getting picked on. But unfortunately, Cheyenne was one of the girls heavily targeted by the preppy clique. So
Great.
they like to comment on her hair, on her clothes, on her weight. That it's so fucking mean.
Who raises
know?
these kids?
I don't know. They made fun of her eczema. They called her hamburger head and snake skin. Yeah. So sad. So sad. But she was pretty resilient. She refused to let those shitty girls bring her down. And she eventually got to a point where she would say things back to them. And the girls would be like really surprised at being called out and like challenged. Because, not used to that. So in the summer of 2012, Cheyenne confides in her close friend that she is pregnant. She is 15 at the time.
Oh, boy.
And this gives the mean girls a whole new way to bully her. They take to social media and say things like, do you even know who the dad is? And she probably doesn't know who the dad is, and she's going to be a shitty mom, etc., right?
Okay.
Yeah. And Cheyenne had a dream of getting married to her boyfriend, who was the baby's father, and raising this baby together. But the two broke up, which was devastating for her. She was living with her mom, and her mom were raising her son together. But Cheyenne and her mom disagreed on how to raise the baby. So as much as Cheyenne, wanted to take care of him by herself, she really she couldn't. And so she eventually turned over guardianship to her mom. I know. So at this time, because of all the bullshittery, she had dropped out of high school. She finds a job in retail, and she's able to secure a place to live in a nearby town called Maple Lake, just outside of Buffalo.
Okay.
And her new housemates are 19-year-old Callie Anderson. She was unemployed and living at this house with her boyfriend, Sean. And Cheyenne and Callie quickly grew close, like besties.
Okay.
Also at this house was 33-year-old Natasha Bradenberger and her boyfriend, Justin.
Okay.
Do we think that this is weird?
Yes. I forgot the name of the first girl.
Callie.
Callie. How old is Callie? Like 18 or something?
19, yeah. And Cheyenne
How old is
18.
Cheyenne at this point? She's 18 at this point?
Mm-hmm. And Natasha is 33.
We don't know how old Justin is.
He's Natasha's age too.
So he's like 32, 33, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, it gets weirder. So, so the three, particularly the three women, are super close. And this is like the first time since like leaving high school that Cheyenne actually feels like she has a tight friend group.
Right.
So the housemates welcome her with open arms. She feels super safe and supported. And, they kind of establish like this family vibe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cheyenne is the only single person in the house until she meets 23-year-old Devin Boyles. Devin had been in and out of jail several times, but Cheyenne was in love with him.
Mm-hmm. We've told this story before.
It's cookie cutter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Insert name here. Yeah. Cheyenne's old high school friends were concerned about this Devin guy, and Cheyenne had even confided in one of her close friends about Devin being physically abusive. But Cheyenne's history of not being included in the cool kids club makes her housemates and her relationship situation really exciting. So she looks past the red flags because she just wants to be included. Ugh,
Yep.
It's so sad.
Again, we've told this story before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But the house definitely has a hierarchy also.
Oh.
The oldest, Natasha, and her boyfriend, Justin, were at the top.
Of course.
And Justin was the self-appointed master of the house.
I'm sorry. He called himself master of the house?
Yeah.
Do you know who else called themselves master?
Hitler?
Slave owners.
That too. And he did not like it when people didn't listen to him. And Natasha just fell in line with whatever Justin wanted.
Sure.
So at first, Natasha and Justin were fine with Devin, but they started to see red flags. But at this point, Devin and Cheyenne were like inseparable. And Devin considered himself, cut to be like part of the group, even though they didn't like him.
Okay.
He was extremely protective of Cheyenne, but of course, she saw it that way as very loving, but what was actually happening was he was totally fucking controlling. And there was like certain things that he wouldn't allow her to do.
Oh, I can't. Okay.
I pivoted from a case that I started working on that I'll probably circle back to because I was like, this one is just going to irritate the fuck out of Naomi. So I'll do a different one. And now you're like, okay. I'm like, oh man, maybe I should.
I mean, douches abound. You know what I mean? Douches abound.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So roommate Callie had a warrant out for her arrest from an assault charge where she failed to appear for court after posting bail.
An assault charge?
Yeah. Okay. She didn't seem too concerned by any of this. She was just at home, just vibing, whatever.
Because she still didn't have a job.
No. Well, I'm just about to tell you about her money-making endeavors. So she starts this hustle where she sets up dates with men through some app she was using, and then she would meet up with them and take their money and run off. Go on, take the money and run. Okay. And Callie tried to get Cheyenne to do it with her, but Cheyenne wanted no part of that.
No.
And her unwillingness to participate pisses Callie off. And the inner mean girl starts flaring up.
We're talking about somebody who has a warrant out for failing to show up to court about her assault charge.
Mm-hmm.
Assault. She assaulted someone.
Okay. Correct.
Right.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
All right. So she starts treating.
Cheyenne, I just want to go right now and like rescue her from this fucking house.
Me too. Remember that weird house that you lived in when you first moved out of mom and dad's house? Wasn't that with like some 30-year-old dude?
Are we going to talk about that again? We brought that up one time on the episode and it was like...
Are we going to talk about that again? Sorry, God.
Well, no, because that was like, that was traumatic. That was a really traumatic time. Like,
yeah, I know. I'm sorry.
Fucked up shit went down in that house.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. It was a weird house. It was a weird old house and it was full of weird old people and it was still better than being at home. Yes.
All I'm saying is I think most people have been there before where your first, dipping your toe into adulthood is usually in like a kind of gross place with a lot of people and it doesn't fucking go well. Friendships fall apart. Shit gets petty, right? It's like everybody does it.
Or worse.
Yep. So yeah, Callie's mad at Cheyenne because she doesn't want to rob people. And so she starts treating her like shit.
Cute. Sorry, it's not funny, but it's like, Jesus Christ.
Oh, and Callie and Natasha start spending a lot of time together and excluding Cheyenne.
Mm-hmm.
And this is super hurtful. This is where I think, just the fact that Natasha lives there is weird, but she's engaging in this teenage behavior too, which is real fucking weird.
Yep. Some people never mature. We've talked about this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So this rift in her relationship with her housemates pushes her even closer to Devin, who is spending more and more time at the house, which is pissing off her roommates.
Okay.
Yeah. Then on June 1st, 2016, a 911 call comes in, and the caller said they were walking through Crow Springs Park in Wright County, Minnesota, and they see what appears to be a dead body. So, paramedics arrive and find a young woman laying face down, and at first she appears deceased, but they're able to find a pulse. She had bullet holes in her back and in the back of her head.
Oh, shit.
The victim is identified as 19-year-old Cheyenne Clough, and she is taken to Buffalo Hospital, where she is later airlifted to a trauma center.
She's still alive with bullet holes in her head?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
I know. Investigators learned that in the early morning hours, like around 2 or 3 a.m., nearby residents heard a woman screaming, followed by what they believed were gunshots. But nobody called.
No, nobody called.
Nobody called. They contact Cheyenne's mom and learn that Cheyenne had called her mom around 2:45 that morning, and her mom didn't answer, but Cheyenne did leave a voicemail saying that she was on her way to her mom's house and she would be there soon. Yeah. When officers interview Cheyenne's high school friends, they ask if they know of anyone who would want to hurt Cheyenne, and the first thought from the friends is Devin.
Sure.
I mean, because it's always the boyfriend, right?
Yeah. It could be anyone in that fucking house.
Yeah. Initially, the police
or everyone.
God, you're basically Keith Morrison. I guess I just need to, you know what? I need to find a really complex one that's gonna just fucking stump you, because I feel like all too often I'm like, well,
chaotic. Bye.
Yeah, the end. She figured it out. Let's go. Okay. They're unable to find Devin initially, but then they learn that he was arrested at the house in Maple Lake, where Cheyenne lived, on May 31st before Cheyenne was shot. So this eliminated him as a suspect. When they speak to him, he tells them that he was arrested at the house. It was just him, Cheyenne, and Natasha at the time that he was picked up. So they go to this house in Maple Lake to talk to the roommates, but the house looked like bags were packed urgently and people fled. And the house is a fucking disgusting shit hot mess of a disaster.
Great.
It's gross. They search through the house and they find bullet holes in the walls and shell casings for a .22 on the carpet. And they find Natasha's ID in a back bedroom. So they want to talk to Natasha. So they put out a bolo for her and her boyfriend, Justin Jensen. Again, in speaking with Cheyenne's high school friends, they learned that things with Cheyenne and her roommates were not great, and that in the previous months, Natasha and Callie had become horrible fucking mean girls to Cheyenne, making her feel unwelcome in her own home. So 2 days after Cheyenne was shot, police get a lead on Natasha and Justin's car just north of Minneapolis. They get footage from a gas station showing Natasha and Justin pulling up to the pump. They get out of their car and walk over to a car that has pulled up to the pump next to them. And inside that car is Callie and this guy, Ed Zelko.
Not her boyfriend.
Not her boyfriend. Well, they only see Callie and Ed.
Got it.
And the two vehicles are headed towards International Falls, which is just on the border of Canada.
Oh, we're making a run for the border.
Not the good kind. Do you like Taco Bell?
No. Who likes
Me either. Michael does.
Oh, Michael.
Michael, I'll tell him. He can't hear you right now, but I'll let him know. Your disappointment.
You got to make the face and the voice.
Michael, it's so gross, right? It's so gross.
I cannot.
Taco time all the way.
Over Taco Bell any day.
Yeah. So then on June 4th, so this is 2 days after the shooting, Cheyenne is taken off of life support and passes away. her high school friends were at her hospital bed when they turned the machines off. I know. Poor baby. Oh, honey. So investigators learned that the two couples, or whoever this Ed person is headed to Justin's friend's house in International Falls. So law enforcement head over to this home, and inside they apprehend Justin Jensen, Natasha Bradenberger, Callie Anderson, and Sean Benson. They are all arrested on murder charges. However, investigators have no physical evidence, so they have 72 hours to get one of these four to talk before they
and now we're going to do the game. Going to do the game. Put them each in their own room. Tell them that the other ones have already told them everything. You might as well come clean.
Well, they don't do that.
Oh.
They pick out
the tried and true?
No, they pick out who they think is the weakest link, which is Callie, and they start with her.
Well, she already has that warrant out for not going to court for assault
things
charge.
Aren't going,
Yes. They have some other things to like hang over her head, so things aren't going great for her.
I mean, she was just picked up on murder, so that's like the least of her worries right now, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So they figure that she maybe had minimal involvement, but likely knew exactly what happened. So they decide to talk to her. Callie says the last time she saw Cheyenne was the night before they left for their International Falls road trip, right after Devin was arrested at the house. Callie said that Natasha and Cheyenne got in a heated argument because Cheyenne believed that Natasha was the one who tipped off authorities of Devin's location so that he would be picked up on his warrants.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Natasha then told Cheyenne that she needed to leave, and Callie says that she could hear the two fighting, so she came out of her room and told Cheyenne to get her stuff and go. Callie said that she asked Cheyenne to leave because Cheyenne was causing problems at the house. She says that Cheyenne got a ride from someone, and that was the last time she spoke to her or saw her.
Good story, Callie. Good story.
Yep. Then she says she won't answer any more questions without an attorney, so the interview ends.
Not the weakest link.
Not the weakest link. Then they interview Natasha. And police start the interview by asking Natasha if they know why they want to talk to her. And Natasha says, yes, because Cheyenne was killed and I am not going to lie for anybody anymore. And then she just starts bawling.
Oh.
I know. Also, like, this was only mentioned like briefly at the top of this weird show that I was watching, but Natasha was described as a 33-year-old nurse. I'm like, you're a nurse and this is your living situation?
Okay, side note. Do you remember those little girls we used to play with all the time that constantly gave us head lice because mom didn't realize they had head lice and their house, when they finally moved, their house was literally shoveling shit out the windows because it was such a hoarded, nasty fucking mess. And those kids always had fucking head lice. And their mom was a nurse.
That's right. Wasn't their house like a meth lab?
I don't know about that part. I don't recall that.
Oh.
I remember it was a toxic fucking mess and they had like hazmat suits practically on while they were like literally with shovels, like the shit out the windows, like after they moved.
So gross. I do remember that. Their mom was a nurse. Okay. So, well.
It happens. It happens. Even to nurses, these things happen.
Mm-hmm. Natasha says she did not kill Cheyenne and she did not want to be blamed for killing her. Okay. And then in this show that I'm watching, you know how sometimes it's got like really dorky like narrator
with like stupid puns and shit.
Yeah, it says Queen Bee Natasha, now a suspected killer bee. So stupid.
Who writes for these shows? You guys, this is what, okay.
It was awesome. Okay. So she says that Devin was arrested. Cheyenne was upset with her because she believed that Natasha was the one who made the call. She said it was just her, Cheyenne, and Callie at the house, and Cheyenne was getting extremely angry. So Natasha told her to leave because she was uncomfortable with the confrontation in the house without Justin being home. You know.
Okay.
The master.
Yeah.
The self-appointed master of the house.
Fuck this guy.
Fuck this guy. And that's when Cheyenne threatened to call authorities and let them know that Callie had an active warrant and where they can find her.
Oh, let's keep playing this game.
I know. That is when Callie came out of her room and gets involved in the conversation and is telling her to leave. Then Justin got home. He breaks up the fight, and the decision was made that Cheyenne needed to leave.
It's
Justin
unanimous.
Yeah. You are the weakest link. Yeah.
Jesus.
Then Justin asked Natasha to get his gun, which was the .22 caliber. Natasha said she got his gun and put it in a backpack and handed it to Justin. Justin gives it to Callie's boyfriend, Sean, who is hanging out with Eddie Zelko.
Okay.
That third guy who was spotted at the gas station. And
Right.
Natasha tells police that Justin told her that Eddie and Sean were going to give Cheyenne a ride to her mom's. So Cheyenne gets in the car. She called her mom and left her that voicemail. And then Natasha says that the two came back about a half hour later and told Justin that Sean and Eddie had shot Cheyenne. She said, yep. She said that she could hear the three men talking in the bedroom, and she could hear Ed and Sean telling Justin that Cheyenne had been shot. And she heard them saying that Sean couldn't get the gun to work, so Eddie had to show him how to use it. That is when Cheyenne started running, and they shot her in the back. She then says that Eddie chased her down and was able to pin her while Sean shot her 3 more times. Yeah. So then police talk to Justin, and he says that he did give the order to Ed and Sean to execute Cheyenne because she was, and she was just too much trouble and was threatening to have Callie arrested.
This is like bordering on like a little baby cult.
Yes. So all 3 men end up pleading guilty to second-degree murder. They're sentenced to 40 years. Callie and Natasha are not arrested.
At all?
And
They get no charges?
In exchange for their testimony as witnesses at the trial, they were not charged.
And then they both changed their names and moved because pariahs.
Yep. That's the story of Cheyenne Clough. That is so fucking sad. It was so sad to watch her high school friends, like, I don't know, finally feeling like included and like, I don't know, just all these posts on the socials with her roommates and like finally found my, my squad. And
oh God,
it's just so devastating.
I hate it.
I hate it too.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Do you have a chaos for me?
I do. And this is going to seem a little out of left field, I bet.
You've got a little smirk on your face, so I'm excited.
Well, let's just say that, but like in a very kind of roundabout way, my opening to the episode was a tiny bit of foreshadowing.
Okay. Great.
Do you think that giants are real?
Andre the Giant was real.
Well, I was going to say we know there are actual human giants, whether a condition of birth or by tumor affecting the pituitary gland, because gigantism is a real medical condition in humans. Famously, this is what Andre the Giant ultimately died from. It's a very serious disease if it's left untreated, which is what Andre chose to do, not treat it. Side note, there's a really great doc about him.
I've seen it.
It's worth watching. Have you seen it?
Devastating.
It's really sad. It's really sad. The word itself, giant, is first attributed to Robert of Gloucester's Chronicle of British, English, and Normish history in 1297 and comes from the Greek word gigantus. Fairy tales like Jack the Giant Killer and Jack and the Beanstalk played a huge part in shaping the canon of giants as dim-witted and violent ogres, sometimes said to eat humans, sometimes said to eat livestock.
Okay.
According to the Greeks, giants were the children of Uranus, god of the sky, and Gaia, Mother Earth. But Uranus was afraid of these giants, his offspring, worried that they would be too powerful. So he trapped them in Gaia's womb. But Gaia was uncomfortable. Go figure, she had a bunch of giant babies stuck in her uterus. So she got her older son Kronos to attack Uranus, and when Uranus bled onto Gaia, the giants were released. The story goes on to say that Kronos took power after that, but then was soon overthrown by Zeus, and the giants were pissed at what happened to their brother, their savior, so they ripped up trees to use as clubs, boulders to use as missiles, and waged an epic war against Zeus and the other gods, the Gigantomachy, it's called. But the giants were ultimately defeated and buried under mountains, and it is their tormented shivers that is said to cause earthquakes and volcanic eruptions.
Oh, okay. All right.
Even today, large and surprisingly human-like bones can be found in Greece. Modern scientists identify these bones as the remains of mammoths, mastodons, and woolly rhinoceroses that once lived in the region.
Mm-hmm.
But ancient Greeks were largely unfamiliar with these massive animals, and many believed that the enormous bones they found were the remains of human-like giants. Any non-human traits in the bones were thought to be due to the grotesque anatomical features of giants.
Huh.
And it isn't just the ancient Greek. Around the globe, myths and folklore and beliefs tell the story of a long-dead giant race of humans that lived among us. Even in the U.S., we have the story of Paul Bunyan, which I later found in my digging was actually made up by a bunch of marketing men. And these tales are distinctly separate of Sasquatch, to be clear. We are talking about very human-like giants, not man-apes.
Okay.
Right?
Got it.
The people of Tingis, which is now Tangier in Morocco, once boasted that their city's founder was a giant named Antaeus, who was buried in a mound south of town. Roman soldiers decided to test that claim and dug into the mound in 81 BC. They did find an enormous skeleton, which they reburied with great honors. Modern scientists confirm that ancient elephant fossils are common in the area. It must have just been very old elephants, you guys. Very, very old elephants.
Yeah.
Then there's Cyclops, which are giants with only one eye, also of Greek mythology. There's a story from Homer's Odyssey about them where Odysseus and his men are on their way home from the Trojan War, and they land on the island of Sicily. They find a cave full of food and gorge themselves, only to discover that the cave was home to a cyclops named Polyphemus. When Polyphemus returned to his cave and found these intruders, he started eating them.
Ew.
At some point, he asked Odysseus what his name was, and Odysseus told Polyphemus that his name was Nobody. Later that evening, Odysseus and his remaining men attacked the Cyclops and drove a stake through his one eye. Polyphemus screamed out in pain and called to his brothers for help, yelling, "Help! Nobody is hurting me."
Stop it.
His brothers were confused, so they ignored the cries.
Oh my God.
In the morning, Polyphemus led his sheep out to graze, running his hand along their backs to make sure the remaining men were not riding out on the sheep, because he was blind now. But Odysseus and his crew had tied themselves to the bellies of the sheep, and they slipped away unnoticed from the blinded Cyclops. So these Cyclopses were said to only live on Sicily. And as far back as the 1370s, scholars have suggested that since the island was once home to ancient elephants whose enormous fossilized skulls and bones can still be found today eroding out of cliffs and hillsides, the first human inhabitants of Sicily might have mistaken this large central hole where the trunk was attached for the enormous single eye socket of a Cyclops.
Okay.
It's just elephants, Amber.
Sure.
And they're mistaking elephant bones for humans.
Sure.
You know, elephants and humans, they're like the same, like samesies.
I can see where they would get confused.
Sure. The Abrahamic religions talk of giants. In Genesis, there is the reference to the Nephilim, which loosely translates to giant in the Hebrew Bible. They were supposedly wiped out by the flood, but they do appear later in other places in the Bible. There's the story of David and Goliath, although Goliath is significantly smaller than other giants.
A junior giant.
A junior giant.
Uh-huh.
Haik was known as the founder of the Armenian state and was part of a race of giants who helped construct the Tower of Babel. Aztec mythology features the Kinametsin, a race of giant men created in one of the previous solar eras and credited with the construction of Teotihuacan, an ancient Mesoamerican city in Mexico.
Okay.
Giants are rough but generally righteous characters of formidable strength living in the hills of the Basque Country. The Basque Country straddles the border between France and Spain, and its people famously rejected Christianity in favor of their traditional ways. They are a great example of an indigenous people in Europe still holding on to their heritage against all odds. Giants stood for the Basque people against converting to Christianity. Sometimes they hold the secret of ancient techniques and wisdom unknown to the Christians, while their most outstanding feature is their strength. It follows that in many legends all over the Basque territory, the giants are held accountable for the creation of many stone formations, hills, and ages-old megalithic structures.
Okay. All right.
In Bulgarian mythology, giants called Ispolini inhabited the earth before modern humans. They lived in the mountains, fed on raw meat, and often fought against dragons.
Okay.
Ispolini were afraid of blackberries because they posed a danger of tripping them. So they offered sacrifices to the blackberries.
Tripping them?
Yeah. Well, they fell down, they die. I mean, it's a hard fall when you're a giant.
Sure. Uh-huh.
There are tales of giants in the northern Chilean town of Caldera that says giants played with ships, moving them from one port to another. Tales of the same area also tell of giants who are able to crush humans with their feet, and when laying down to sleep being so long, they reach from the mountains to the sea.
Wow.
In some stories, the giants are black humanoids or black bulls. In southern Chile, there are stories of giants said to belong to certain volcanoes. The mythical city of Tololo, Pampa, in northern Chile, is said to be guarded by a giant known by various names. The giant enters the mountains to gather riches for the princess of Tololo, Pampa. If someone manages to watch the giant while he works, folklore says the person will be blessed with good luck for the rest of their life.
Oh, okay.
There are accounts stating humans grew to the size of giants during the Satya Yuga, the first of the 4 cyclical ages in the Hindu reckoning of time. According to Jainism, another belief from India, there was a time when giants walked upon this earth. In Norse mythology, the Jotnar are often opposed to the gods. While often translated as giants, most are described as being roughly human-sized. Some are portrayed as huge, such as some frost giants, fire giants, and mountain giants. The Jotnar are the origin of most various monsters in Norse mythology, and in the eventual battle of Ragnarok, the giants will storm Asgard, where the gods live, and fight the gods until the world is destroyed. An old Icelandic legend says that 2 night-prowling giants, a man and a woman, were traversing the fjord near Drangi Island with their cow when they were surprised by the bright rays of daybreak. As a result of exposure to daylight, all 3 were turned into stone.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. According to Northern Paiute oral history, the Siteka or Sai are a legendary tribe of red-haired cannibalistic giants, the remains of which were allegedly found in 1911 by guano miners in Nevada's Lovelock Cave. The Paiute creation story tells of beautiful giants who once lived between the Sierra Nevadas and the Rocky Mountains. After giving birth to a disfigured child, the giants treated the child so poorly that the Great Spirit responded by making the land hot and desolate and allowing enemies to conquer the giants. Only 2 giants survived, Paiute and his wife, both of whose skin became brown from eternally living in the hot desert.
Shit. God.
In folklore from all over Europe, giants were believed to have built the remains of previous civilizations. One Danish historian thought giants had a hand in the creation of megalithic monuments. The Old English poem The Seafarer speaks of the high stone walls that were the work of giants. Natural geological features, such as the massive basalt columns of the Giant's Causeway on the coast of Northern Ireland, were attributed to construction by giants. I've been there.
You have?
I have pictures. Remember when I went to Ireland?
Yes.
There was a day of exploration, and I saw all kinds of amazing things in Northern Ireland, including the Giant's Causeway. It's a very famous place.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Does it
it's
look
really
like
cool.
Giants made it?
I mean, kind of. It's those basalt columns. Like I've actually seen them. We have them here in the Pacific Northwest too. They're made by a particular type of volcanic activity with a particular type of rock, right? And so what happens is it's crazy, but supposedly natural that when this volcanic activity happens and then the rock cools, it actually forms these perfect, I think they're 6-sided like cylinders and like tons of them. I have pictures in my camera roll or in my folders or whatever from hikes I've done in the Cascades where I've taken photographs of giant walls of these stacked up. You can see them, you can zoom in and you can see each individual little like end of the column. And I have pictures of the same exact type of formation when I visited the Giant's Causeway in Northern Ireland.
That's so cool. Wow.
It's super cool. It's super cool. I'll include pictures of that when we do the post.
Okay.
In the Netherlands, giants are often associated with creating or forming the landscape. For instance, 2 giants are said to have dug a channel until they reached the village of Akram, where they had an argument and each went his own way, thus splitting the channel into 2 separate waterways. Others threw up hills or became hills themselves when they died on the spot. In several legends, giants were evil beings that threatened, robbed, and killed travelers or locals. Medieval chivalry romances feature giants as antagonists or, on rare occasions, as allies. This is parodied famously in the story Don Quixote, where he attacks a windmill, believing it to be a giant. This is the source of the phrase, tilting at windmills.
Oh, interesting.
Tales of combat with giants were a common feature in the folklore of the British Isles. Celtic giants also figure in Breton and Arthurian romances. In Kinloch Rannoch, a local myth has a local hill resembling a giant named as the Sleeping Giant. Folklore says the giant will awaken only if a specific musical instrument is played near the hill. Giants are also prominent in Welsh folklore. Now, this is, of course, not a comprehensive list, but it does show that myths, folklore, and oral histories all over the world speak of giants as real things.
Yes.
And I was listening to another podcast the other night, the one I've been falling asleep to for a while now. It's called Sasquatch Chronicles. And if that kind of thing interests you, I do recommend it. It's been around for many years, though it has lots and lots of episodes. And mostly the format is the host records interviews he conducts with people who share their stories of encountering Sasquatch. And sometimes other cryptids and such, but it's mostly Sasquatch. And I was listening to an episode the other night that kind of blew my mind because the man he interviewed, he did start out with his Sasquatch story, but then they started talking about this man's time in the U.S. military service. And he talked about a few strange things he experienced while in Iraq. And then the host asked him, hey, have you ever heard of the Giant of Kandahar? And the guy was like, yeah, I've heard of it. He was like, you know, he didn't really know much about the veracity of the story, but based on the weird shit he'd seen, he wasn't going to simply dismiss it. And then I was curious, like, what is this?
What is that? Yeah.
The story goes, in 2002, an elite tactical team of the U.S. military, some kind of special ops unit of whatever branch we do not know, was sent out to a remote mountain region in Kandahar in the south of Afghanistan. A group of soldiers had gone missing while on patrol in that area and had failed to make contact for some extended period of time. So then high up in the mountains, this special forces unit that went looking for these missing soldiers, they come across a cave with army equipment scattered around, but no sign of any of the missing soldiers.
Okay.
Suddenly, a red-headed giant, at least 13 feet tall, with 6 fingers on each hand and 2 rows of teeth in its head, wearing leather moccasins, emerged from this cave, smelling like dead bodies.
Oh, God.
Spear in hand, and impaled one of the soldiers, killing him on the spot.
What the fuck?
All the other soldiers opened fire and continued to fire at this giant for at least 30 seconds before the giant finally fell.
Okay.
Supposedly, the squad was armed with full auto M4 carbines, recon carbines, which are semi-automatic, and M107 Barrett anti-material rifles firing 50 caliber BMG. Look, I don't know what any of that means, except that this much firepower concentrated on one target for 1 second, let alone 30, would be extremely destructive.
Right.
After they killed this thing, they loaded it up on a Chinook helicopter, which carried it to a transport plane and was never seen again. And the story goes, all these soldiers had to sign an NDA saying they would never speak about it. But eventually someone broke the silence because, as one of them said, the people have a right to know the truth.
Uh-huh.
So this all comes out initially in a YouTube video in August of 2016 in a lengthy interview with a military contractor identified only as Mr. K.
Okay.
In the interview, Mr. K claimed to have been present during the brutal slaughter of this killer that he called the Kandahar Giant. This was at the height, when this story happened, was at the height of Operation Enduring Freedom, when the U.S. military was tracking down the Taliban and really kicking off that war on terror.
Uh-huh.
Later that same month, Snopes reached out to the Department of Defense, and they're like, hey, is this true?
Is there a giant?
Yes. And of course, the DOD was like, no, there's no record of a service member dying at the hands of a giant in Kandahar. And there's no press release of a special forces troop disappearing in Afghanistan or of any incidents involving soldiers taking out a giant.
Okay.
And this lack of evidence and denial by the government and Snopes saying it's not true just made some people more certain that it was, in fact, a real story.
Sure.
Right. Around the same time that Snopes article came out that discredited the story, self-proclaimed supernaturalist L.A. Marzulli told several right-wing websites that the United States government was covering up this spectacular story and that those in power had a vested interest in keeping the truth of biblical prophecies from being exposed to the general public.
Uh-huh. Sure.
But then the story got a little bit of mainstream attention because it was featured on Coast to Coast, hosted by the late, great Art Bell.
Uh-huh.
So according to Nick Orton, who hosts a blog dedicated to veterans news and issues, quote, there are many accounts of soldiers who have reported seeing massive humanoids that tower over the normal man in Afghanistan. These stories are out there, albeit hard to come by. Not many are going to come forward and claim they saw a massive man running around in the mountains of Afghanistan, but perhaps there is something truly massive out there.
Oh, God.
In his post titled Tales from the Grid Square, he shares several other gigantic tales he allegedly collected from military members. They include the Giant of Kunar, a massive being an infantry team leader reportedly saw during a deployment between 2008 and 2009. Mm-hmm. While overlooking a village one night, the soldier peered through his newly mounted thermal scope. As he spanned the valley, he came across a very large heat signature he assumed was a group of Taliban fighters huddled together around a light high up in the mountains. This soldier says, quote, all of a sudden, the heat signature stood up as one being. The trees in that area grew up to about 10 to 12 feet tall, and this thing was at least as tall, if not taller, than the trees that surrounded it.
Oh my God.
He said the giant's stride was slow and relaxed, yet it moved with incredible speed and had a chill yet purposeful vibe. It walked parallel to the soldier's position for a time before disappearing along a nearby spur. Stories of the encounter were not shared with many, but memories of what he had seen came flooding back after listening to Coast to Coast.
Uh-huh. I hate this.
Orton also included the story of an anonymous. You hate this? I kind of love this.
No, I love it, but I have the chillies because it's spooky.
I love that. I love it when I can give you the chilies. That's good. Orton also included the story of an anonymous Air Force drone operator who was working in the northern part of Afghanistan during the war, who said he was, quote, scanning around, doing my thing, and looking for stuff. One day, the drone operator spotted 3 giants, each standing roughly 12 feet tall. He says, quote, there's a ruler tool that tells you how wide your crosshair is, and the people were as tall as the crosshair was wide. This was all in midwave. or infrared at night. So they showed up as black humanoid heat signatures.
Oh my God.
For 10 minutes, he observed them, during which time he reported the giants tended their fire and performed other chores. The only interesting thing was the size. The goats looked like cats next to them.
Oh my God. What?
I know. This is the rabbit hole I went down, sister. Another airman recalled doing a pre-op soak northeast of the Korengal Valley, where he scanned and analyzed real-time video feeds. According to his elaborate account, the airman watched some dudes around a fire to see if he could identify any weapons. Quote, after about 20 minutes, what we thought were two dudes huddled together under a blanket stood up. This guy made the rest of the dudes look like children in terms of height. He stood up and walked over to a mud hut that he had to bend way over to get in.
So he's standing next to other dudes?
Sounds like it.
So there's people out there just hanging with these guys that are like, oh yeah, that's my giant friend.
Yeah, sounds like it. I mean, that's the way this guy's story sounds.
Okay.
Finally, an Australian army officer who was on sentry duty in the country's Uruzgan province recalled spotting a giant going for a leisurely stroll around a nearby compound. It was lanky and wore unusual clothing. By lasing the compound, the officer estimated the giant to be about 1,800 meters away. Quote, it wasn't in any hurry, and I followed it for about 5 minutes before it went out of my field of vision. He suspected the giant to be about 12 feet tall.
Oh my
Quote,
God.
just looked like it was walking, wasn't in a hurry at all, but was aware of what was happening around it, kept looking around, especially near the compounds. I don't know of anyone else who saw anything like it, never told anyone about it before, but it has stayed with me over all these years.
What the hell?
So the host of Sasquatch Chronicles, in his interview with this ex-soldier, as they were talking about the Afghanistan giants, he said that he has talked to a lot of service members. And he was talking to one, a special forces guy, real hardcore dude. And the host jokingly brought up the story of the giant of Kandahar. Like, that giant of Kandahar story, isn't that crazy? And this military guy, this like hardcore dude, looks at him straight-faced, no jokes, very serious, and says, that's a true story. That actually happened. I know a guy that was there.
Whoa, God.
And that's giants, you guys, and the Kandahar giant.
Oh my God. They do exist.
I mean, maybe.
I'm gonna
Sasquatch exists, so.
What the hell? That's wild, sister. I got the chilies.
I love it. You're welcome.
Oh, thank you. God, giants. Mm-mm. When you were first talking about the giants, all I could think about was that really old Mickey Mouse where he tackles the giant. He
which one?
Mickey takes his needle and thread and ties the giant down, and everyone in the village celebrates because he conquered the giant.
I think, isn't that some sort of play off of the story of the locations?
So. I was going to ask you, one of these is probably what they're referencing when you were going through your list. But yeah, that's probably my education level of giants. I'm like, well, there was that one that Mickey got that one time. God.
I mean, I think it's really interesting, right? I think it's really interesting when you look at folklore, oral histories, you look at ancient stories, right, that span the globe, that predate anything even approaching the information age, or all of us are traveling globally as a species, right? And they have the same stories. That's always really interesting to me. I think that's worth noting.
I do too. Yeah, that is wild. So,
maybe some giants survived in Afghanistan.
Maybe.
Fuck,
that was a good one, sis.
I'm glad you liked it. We did it, sister. We did it.
We did it.
2 in 1 week. I'm proud of us.
Me too. Look at us. Follow us on all the things. We're on all the things.
We're on all the things.
We have a Gmail. crimewiningchaos@gmail.com.
You can send love letters to Amber. You can send hate mail to me, but it goes to the same address. Yep. crimewineandchaos@gmail.com. Oh, leave us a review wherever you listen to podcasts, give us a rating. And if you can typey a review, even better. We love that.
Typey.
Tell us how much you love us, because we love you, Chaos Kids. And that was
so
chaotic.
Chaotic. Goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye. Crime, Wine, and Chaos is produced by 8th Direction Records. Artwork by Joshua M. Davis. Music by Paul Abner. If you would like to support the show, you can visit our Patreon page at crimewineandchaos.com/Patreon. Cheers. Let me get my split screen going on here so I can read my story. All right.